esteemed viewers. Welcome back to this episode of the Inter-University Debate. But before we get into the conversation, I would like to take this opportune moment to stand with the people of Namibia and wish their fallen president, Mr. Hage Geingob, to rest in peace, but also stand in solidarity with the citizens of Namibia and wish them, to stay calm and stay composed. Otherwise, Africa has lost a great leader, but nonetheless, we keep moving. Today, we are discussing the status of Uganda's economy. We are looking at the budget framework of 2024-2025. And the budget framework of 2024-2025 runs under the theme of full monetization of the Ugandan economy through, it looks at industrialization, commercial agriculture, digital transformation, among others. My name is Douglas Drake. I'll be your host or moderator for tonight's conversation. And joining me to discuss this very robust and interesting conversation is a panel of distinguished ladies and gentlemen who will help us unpack the conversation and put perspective to the conversation. But before we get into the nitty-gritties of the discussion, I'll just quickly get to the panelists to go ahead and say hello, introduce themselves in a manner that they feel fit, because I feel I'm in no better capacity to let them do the honors of doing so. So I'll begin from my extreme right, coming to my nearest right here. Gentleman in a grey suit, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, our dear viewers. My name is Arinda Rugambwa, and I'm a fourth-year law student at Uganda Christian University.
Thank you very much. Mr. Arinda Rugambwa, we're very happy to have you here. I don't know if I'm allowed to call you by your AKA, but nonetheless, I'll stick with what you've just introduced right now. But yes. Am I allowed to say your AKA?
For the purposes of this show.
All right, Mr. Rugambwa, I'll stick with that. Right. The lady that is somewhat wearing the same attire that I am wearing. Oh. So,
thank you so much, Drake. Good afternoon, our esteemed viewers. My name is Akun Tracy Patience from Uganda Christian University. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akun Patience. We're very happy to have you here and looking forward to having an interesting conversation with you. The gentleman from Jeema. Definitely I shouldn't have said Jeema, but I had to, because the party, most people would say it's somewhat quiet. But just go ahead and
I know you're trying to provoke me, but that won't drive me away from introducing myself.
Definitely.
Hello, esteemed viewers. Good afternoon. My name is Kasozi Abdul, and I'm the organizing secretary of the Jeema Youth League. Yeah, I think for now, we shall discuss others later, how my party is vibrant and not silent.
All right, Mr. Kasozi. Indeed, you're the organizing secretary, so we're looking forward to seeing your organization in the forthcoming elections in 2026. I think after this conversation, we shall have a different perspective to what Jeema is.
Yeah, we shall.
Definitely.
We shall.
All right, let's just start the conversation. We are looking at the status of our economy. But I want us to take this conversation. I want us to look at it from an angle of a student, but also as an ordinary Ugandan. Because when we talk about economics, oftentimes people are looking at economical terms and digits and numbers. But what Mr. Ramadan Gobi, the permanent secretary, says that before being appointed to the position that he occupies now, he says he's going to work on the economics that works for Uganda. But I don't know how far that has gone. But nonetheless, I believe this panel today has the right vigor and the right knowledge to put that conversation to perspective. I'll start with you, Isaac. In 2023-2024, our budget was at a tone of 52.7 trillion Ugandan shillings. And a few days ago, the Minister of Finance, Honorable Matthias Kasaija, said that whenever he attends cabinet meeting and the president tells him, get money for this, he just keeps quiet and says yes. But let us just get to the conversation. Fast forward, what is the budget framework of 2024-2025 like? And maybe you can give us into context what this looks like for Uganda.
Well, it's, firstly, I will note that it is absurd that a country like Uganda has such a budget that they have laid out. When you look at our history, dating back from at least when we can summarily say 86 when we a little bit can talk of the context of stability. You realize that while many might define it as a long way or a long walk, we cannot justify that walk currently. We cannot stand and say that such a budget suits within what other states would actually term as developing. Developing in a sense that we are dealing with numbers, we are dealing with figures, but on ground, there is nothing like implementation. There is nothing like, you know, something substantial to justify that these figures that we are running at. We talk about inflation and it looks to be like a catchy word, but when we go into what actually is happening on the ground, the situation is quite dire, very dire, you know, very dire, and it is even likely to get worse when you look at around page around 64 of the framework. When you're talking about the figures from 2.5 to 2.6%, it seems to be something that is very, people are so conversant with discussing this issue, but the country is dying. The country is dying. With the current budget and the current debt that we are having, it's almost, you know, we are like working for the international organizations where we get this money from. And I definitely would agree with the Honorable Minister Kasaija. What should he say? What should he say? You need to supplement. Every time we need to supplement, but supplementing what activities actually. So it is a very, very sad moment and phenomena that our country is dying without us actually taking keen note of what is actually causing the death. But just to the viewers, we are the country. So if the country is dying, we are the very people that are dying.
Quite unfortunate that we're the people that are dying. Let me engage the lady. Patience. What Isaac just notes, that the country is dying and we're the people that are dying with it. Our current debt burden stands, as of June 2023, at 23.7 billion US dollars. And maybe to put it in simpler terms, approximately each Ugandan on their heads, they're supposed to pay a total of, I think, 1.3 million Ugandan shillings. That is, if at all you are to pay that debt, of which majority of Ugandans, 41, statistics have it that 41% of our population are poor people. That means they live on less than $1 a day. So the situation is terrible. But nonetheless, we shall get to that. I would like to pick your overview on the budget framework of 2020 for 2025. Is there a hope for Uganda that there's going to be a difference?
Thank you so much, Drake. Well, looking back in the year 2020 through 2024, the budget that had been allocated by the government, it was good. It was good in such a fact that it was 52.7 trillion, as you mentioned earlier, of which that has been allocated in different sectors. We see industrialization, agriculture, and other sectors, of which they have not been implemented fully. Not that there was any hurdle or difficulty in implementing that budget, but there are also shortcomings that limit the implementation of the budget. You find, like, as you has mentioned earlier, the biggest problem that is affecting many Ugandans today, it's in inflation. You go to the market and you find when the prices have really shot up, and when you look around and see, like you mentioned, that's minutes back, that most Ugandans, 41%, they live below the poverty level, of which it's really disastrous to the economy, because the government should implement something that is favorable for all the people, starting from the middle income earners to the low income earners. It has to be balanced so that everyone can have a take, like, and can pick up from wherever they are. So according to me, the implementation of the 2024-2025 budget, they should look at some sectors that maybe might lift up the inflation crisis, and also they can also look at a way of maybe reducing on the level of borrowing. You see, last year, 50% of the GDP was taken up by borrowing, that the country was indebted. And if we can cut short the debt, it will make the budget to be a little bit balanced, of which the deficit can be reduced to a certain level, and the country can a little bit be balanced in terms of like service delivery to the people. And I concur with the finance minister, Matia Kaskasaida. Sometimes you might be the minister of a certain sector, but still you might not take up and you might not take an upper role in implementing certain things which might be beyond your control. But if maybe we can all work hand in hand as Ugandans to bring about a better economy, it will be so good.
All right.
According to me.
All right, fair enough. Abdul,
Yeah.
let us just start unpacking the conversation. Isaac and Patience have done justice in trying to give us an overview of what they think and what they feel on the budget framework of 2024-2025. The theme is focusing on full monetization of the Ugandan economy, taking us through commercial agriculture, industrialization, etc.
Expanding the broadening services.
Yeah, they use very, very interesting English.
Interesting.
Yeah, very, very interesting. But nonetheless,
decorative.
the government has actually done tremendous work in trying to bring us forth as a country.
Yeah.
Now, let us first, because we need to look to the past to help us better understand what 2024-2025 financial year will look like. In understanding the performance of 2023-2024, do you think we as a country, there is going to be any slight moment in time where we see agriculture, as the theme articulates, that there's going to be commercial agriculture? Anyway, move in that direction.
If I would like to pose a question to my fellow panelists.
Yeah.
What is the current, do we have the current cash crops in Uganda? What are the current cash crops in Uganda that are visible? Because leave along the textbooks we had, like cotton, coffee. What is the real current cash crop in Uganda?
I think we are only left with coffee.
Coffee?
Only,
Yet you left Agoa?
Yes.
Okay.
You see,
Right.
leaving Agoa does not mean that we can no longer grow coffee.
Yeah.
Because definitely
The world still needs
the
coffee.
world
still needs
needs
coffee.
coffee.
Actually, Uganda is the leading producer of coffee in Africa and the 7th largest in the world. So it will be so good if we focus on something that we produce best.
Okay, so have you, yet we are looking at agriculture as in terms of value addition and seeing how it can add on the budget. Have you followed the current scandals in the coffee sector? If you can go through the tweets of Kapshenga and the scuffle around the coffee sector, and having this money allocated to teaching us, the youth, on how to take coffee and how we can easily consume coffee. You are spending more money on claiming to teach us to drink coffee than you get from coffee, from us. You know, personally, I would like to pose this. We are good in planning, and we are good in beautifying the documentation that gives the world that our economy is booming.
It's doing well.
We are good in explaining. We are good in giving hope that so and so. When you bring Ramadan Gobi here, you can't live here doubting him. He can explain to you, and you can leave this place with full authority that when I live here, I'm going to be rich. When I live here, the country, the infrastructure is going to be wow. But then, yesterday, last time they announced that they have dispatched some money from the treasury to go to the some allocated institutions. But I saw Honorable Semuju was tasking them, please, can you do a follow-up and go to those accounts and see whether that money is there? We may be here, yet they are just they are dispersing like figures, telling us that we have allocated so and so, now we have released this amount of money to go in this kind of sectors. But is really that money there? So the planning and the implementation is different from us Ugandans. I know very well, even the documents we have in Uganda, when you take them to America, they can easily do a tremendous job. But the implementation part, the Ugandan implementation part, that's where the problem is. The infrastructure we have the money that are allocated for the infrastructure we have is not corresponding to the current quality of the infrastructure we have. Now, back to the theme. When they say, let me just quote it the way it is, full monetization of the Ugandan economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation and market access. Okay, let me start from behind to the front. Digital transformation. Digital transformation. With the youth, personally, I'm an IT person. I know when they say digital transformation, what they mean. You can't deny me access to the digital world that I always yearn for. I went to school to be able to access this. Now, the way I can access the digital transformation you are taking me to, then you are posing this, that now you have no room to access Facebook, you have no room to access internet. With our slow internet we can't even have a 1 hour meeting without the interruption in the internet.
Ms. Abdul, in as much as I would not so much vary from your angle of thought when it comes to internet, is it Uganda's problem that we have slow internet because Uganda does not produce its own internet?
It doesn't produce its own internet. Also, other countries don't produce their own internet.
Because as far as I'm concerned, it's apart from South Africa that does Orange. I think South Africa is currently the one that is trying to do its own internet. All African states, at least bare minimally,
but
we have.
I understand. I understand.
His argument here stemming from the aspect that first and foremost you infringe rights for people to access internet.
To access internet.
But then secondly, you also have very high costs on internet. In terms of taxes, among others. And yet you're talking about digital transformation. You have companies like Jeema who want to actually close in Uganda because they have failed to penetrate the market. And yet your theme is talking about market access.
And digital transformation.
And this theme is looking at the aspect of East Africa integration, among others. But nonetheless, make a submission so that I can gauge.
Okay. Back to the commercial agriculture.
Okay.
The commercialization of agriculture, I'm a child of, I grew up in Mukono. That's the extreme end of Mukono as we are heading to Kayunga. I happen to say that 90% of my village mates, none of them can sell more than 1 million in their agricultural produce, more than 1 million in a month. And the commercialization of agriculture we are talking of, the products we are trying, the plants, the plantation we are trying to provide through NADS, and you see, they are of low quality to the extent that even we, the Ugandans, we can't consume. There's this kind of plantains called fia, matoke fia, that fia type. You may find that we had like 70% of the village mates had those in their gardens, but none of them in their village can consume that.
All right. Let me just get to
because it was low quality and it's not that tasty.
All right, let me just get to Isaac. Isaac, I want us to just assess commercial agriculture. Historically, agriculture has been known to be the backbone of Uganda's economy.
Yeah.
And where we are at the moment, it seems like it is the only sector that is providing us with a lot of export income. That being said, we have a number of government programs that are aiming at stimulating commercial agriculture and also giving young people access to go ahead and do the agriculture. For example, the NADS that he has mentioned. We have the PDM that is looking at providing resources for young people to go ahead and engage in commercial agriculture. Is there a possibility from all those activities that the government is coming up tirelessly with to help move the country forward and the economy forward? Is it already enough action by government in trying to foster commercial agriculture but also economic success?
You see, Mr. Moderator, you have asked me over 5 questions in one. But I will try.
Yes.
Talking about commercialization of agriculture in Uganda here, and Mr. Abdul has rightly stated that he comes from Mukono, the deep ends of Kayunga. I have been there personally, and the major crop that is there is called the balugu. I don't know if you
No.
Wait.
No, it can't be.
You see, yeah, I've been there. Now, if I was to use
balugu?
Balugu is largely grown actually.
Who consumes it?
Yes, people from Kayunga. You can go there and check. You can go there and check. Now, what I'm coming to is 2 positions. The first position is the governmental position, and the second position is the citizenry kind of position. You see, government cannot come to Kayunga and support people to grow balugu. We need to look at it in a more diversified kind of angle. If we want to commercialize agriculture, or if the government wants to commercialize agriculture, which are the people in position? Or how have we positioned ourselves to take up such a mantle? It is so true that while the state has rightfully and beautifully decorated this budget framework, yeah, it is not entirely true. That I agree. However, I also agree with the fact that to realize such a trend that we are trying to aim at, it calls for both parties to come together. When we talk about, you talked about coffee, there is cotton, people in Bushenya growing cotton, in northern Uganda, people are coming from Kapchora to Bushenyi to grow sorghum, Kasese, sorghum is taking shape, Kabale, we have Irish there. So if we are going to talk about commercialization, it will go back to what are the land policies that we have. Land ownership rights. People in Western Europe, why they have that what is called commercialized agriculture is because they will look at Mr. Drake. Can you farm 200 acres of land alone? Do you have that capacity? Can you produce this much? So the state already has a plan of what it can produce and what it cannot produce. We cannot commercialize agriculture yet. For example, 90% of Ugandans, if not 95%, they are subsistence farmers. What brings us together is this common Nakashero market, I think. The common Nakashero market. So as long as we are still moving at that rate, as long as we do not yet have the capacity to farm 200, 250 acres and say maybe I am going to produce, for example, our president, His Excellency was complaining about jackfruit in America, but that jackfruit is from where?
And pineapples.
And pineapples. They are from where?
From there.
Which tree in America grows that?
We have our own pineapples here and jackfruit here.
The point I'm trying to make is simple. Agriculture can be commercialized, and we are moving to that. The best example we can have is coffee. It is true that the coffee sector has not yet been streamlined. But what is beautiful is that we can first of all appreciate the fact that it is existing. Yeah? When you look at the history of coffee production in Uganda and what we are currently having, all these efforts that the government is taking to try and make sure that at least coffee as an export is harmonized, is at least showing us that at least the country is taking efforts. When we go to other crops, when we go to other perishables, tomatoes, onions, most of these, I think Uganda mostly sends these things to East African countries. Rwanda, a lot of trucks. You saw what happened.
The onion we consume mainly in Uganda, it's not in Uganda, grown in Uganda. You go in Chisenya and see.
You're very right.
You see cars from Kenya and Tanzania.
You're very
flooding that area.
But then now
it is true. But when we look at commercializing this agricultural bit of it, because we are growing onions, I myself, I'm growing onions. Okay,
Where do you sell it?
In Mushenyi. I sell it in Nakasero. Where else? I told you Nakasero is my common market here. So what I'm trying to say is, because I'm also alive to the fact that we send maize to Kenya, milk and whatever, but
Are we still
production on a scale, yes, production.
Are we still sending them?
There has been a lot of scuffles between the two states, but of course, low key, I do not want Mr. Ruto to fault me, but low key. What I'm trying to say is that to best come into the parameters of this so-called commercialized agriculture, it takes you and I. It takes the state. The state has put avenues. You've mentioned NADS, you've mentioned PDMs. Now, again, when we talk about the state and NADS and giving us matoke that is not, you said it does not have a taste. The other time they gave us maize in Western Uganda in Kawali, and just one seed was like almost a palm of my hand. so in as much as we might want to commercialize agriculture, it comes back to our state organization. How are we organizing the community to accept or to receive this commercialized agriculture? When we go to northern Uganda, can we only focus on what we can grow on a large scale to supplement the markets, both in East Africa and outside Africa? Can we focus, if it is Western Uganda, can we focus on that? Can we support these people? Is there an organization, or is there something that brings together all Irish growers in Western Uganda, that this is our common goal? We all grow this Irish, put it here, we process it. We're actually talking about commercialization, but we're not processing. We're not processing.
So value adding.
Exactly. On that point, I would just like to bring in Patience. Speaking of value addition and industrialization, which is an aspect that was in the previous budget of 2023-2024, which, to the best of my knowledge, the country has significantly registered tremendous amount of industrialization. From the oil is now being exploited at the moment. We are seeing a couple of industries coming up. But let us look at the industrialization in terms of value addition on the products that we have. We have, when our maize was exported, Kenya recently stopped Ugandan products from entering into their country because of the poor quality. Saudi Arabia declined our goats because the meat was of what? Low quality. So how can we then position ourselves in a strategic position, industrialize in a strategic position that would propel our country and our economy to a much better position?
Thank you so much, Mr. Drake. Well, with industrialization, it's far-fetched from agriculture. What is produced, let me say, to be packaged and maybe exported out comes from the agricultural part of it. So you see, for the case of maize, maize is normally produced in the northern parts of the area, and the different people who produce that maize, they normally work in a group, let me say, circles. So they should try to talk to them and make sure that the process of the process that they use to maybe plant, weed, and harvest those maize and maybe package it to take it to the factories for packaging should be like highly increased, so that it can prevent maybe those pests, like to prevent like the maize from getting in touch with maybe other
foreign bodies.
Yeah.
Maybe on that point, I'd just like you to look at it from the perspective of parish development model. The government has tried its efforts, and as much as it can, to provide communities with money, resources, and equipment to help them add some value on the products, but also widen their farming activities. So what do you make of that? Isn't that already enough initiative by the government to help the communities, as you're trying to say?
Yes, the government has really done good work. But what I'm seeing now, like, coming up is that we have to, like, go back and implement the growing of those traditional crops, like the maize. You see, like with the growth in the industrialization, you see, they bring these seeds. I don't know how they call them. They're these seeds that are not like the
GMOs.
Yeah, the GMOs. So those are the GMOs that he was complaining about, whereby there are certain crops that don't have the original taste, like for long ago. You see, if you're to maybe bring crops that are grown deep in the village and the ones that are grown like from a large scale within the town areas, you will find that that taste varies because people now look at quality instead of quantity, which is not good because there are countries like Kenya, maybe Saudi Arabia, those are the people that consume those crops. They want quality, not quantity, or like they want to consume something that is highly like recommended. So Uganda as a country, if they want to improve on the industrialization and maybe the exportation, they should limit the use of GMOs to maybe boost the agricultural products, because crops that don't have that value and yield, they're not highly recommended in some countries. Maybe the government can try to implement the growth of maybe those original traditional crops. Yeah, maybe in large scale.
On supplement on what she has said, I was of a view one time that you see what is going around with coffee, that there are coffee sectors whereby they follow you up even in the garden. You register as a coffee farmer. You have supervisors that come and visit your farm on a regular basis. They say, "Oh, now your crops is okay. Your tree are good. Okay, use this kind of use this kind of pesticide. Use this and that." So I think this must go around all the cash crops we have, even on maize. Is it possible to have these maize farmers also registered and have their body somewhere?
But you see, Abdul, there was a body of coffee farmers before that looked at first of all providing a common market for coffee farmers in Uganda, of which that body over the years died.
No, I'm not looking at something that looks for the market. That's the end part of the growing process and the processing. I'm looking at something that follows it up even from the time the seed is being thrown into the soil. Because now the catastrophe you have around maize and milk is not the same catastrophe you have on coffee. Because you see, if you don't follow up the cows, what the cows eat, which kind of water the cows drink, the situation where the environment these cows do live, that matters more in the quality of the milk that cow will produce. So I think personally that if the government want to commercialize this kind of agriculture, they must create this kind of societies and bodies that can follow up not only at the end part, but even at the beginning of these plantations when they are just being thrown into the soil. That, okay, which kind of, they assess the soil, because as he said, you register as a farmer, then there's a body that can follow up on the kind of plantations you have, how healthy they are. We don't need to find this. Remember, our maize, I don't think that even the exporters have this kind of assessment before they even export. You just find they do the assessment even in the other country, and then they send it back to the country. Then UNBS say, hey, okay, you bring it back and we assess it again. So I thought that we are shaming ourselves outside. It would have been the work of UNBS to assess this before it goes outside. We are creating a bad image in Kenya. It would have been the work of UNBS to do this before even the Kenya bodies do that. I think we are also selling off ourselves.
Mr. Abdul, talking about UNBS, where do these GMOs come from?
I'm not certain, but the scientists know best.
Because what we are looking at is, if you're talking about quality, it is not NBS that grows these crops.
But they have the right to check for the quality.
Yes, they do. But if, for example, you have your fact and that we are no longer taking things to Kenya, which I do not want to override on air. But
you may call it political, but in reality, it's happening.
Well, the point I want to arrive at is that discipline. our farmers are indisciplined, okay, and we are taken up by the want of money without the need to preserve life by feeding, by realizing the benefits of feeding healthy, and secondly, we can also fault ourselves on discipline, on the virtues that it is more of a money-making kind of business, without realizing that in the long run, it is now us that, because now once the market is cut off, even that is bad that you have been sending, you can no longer actually, and you cannot eat everything yourself.
Okay, I understand. I remember, you have these farmers, the ones we have, they think that if it's not exported, we shall consume it locally. But I'm looking at the fact that can the government assess that scenario and come up with a complete solution? As you said, we are indisciplined, and the government in this case is the parent. Let it come back and discipline us in a way that they create a disciplinary committee for each and every sector.
But
that for coffee, there is a disciplinary committee for coffee farmers.
But Abdul, just let me cut you short there. In your earlier submissions, you said we have very good written frameworks.
Yes, we do.
The issue that we have is in regards
to implementation.
And right now, again, suggesting that the government should come up with more initiatives, of which, if at all I'm to get you right, the implementation will still fail. So now, what I would like you to submit on is what can the government do differently from what they've been doing to better improve industrialization and commercial agriculture in the financial year, which is coming in 2024-2025.
The suggestions I've made, the government hasn't done anything in that regard, even creating those societies. That's my suggestion. I believe, as he has said, the indiscipline, how can we erase that indiscipline, the farmers we have? Remember, I said that we are good in bringing up this formation of the documentation and beautifying them, which is okay. Yeah? But this time around, can we also work on documentation that have implementable strategies? Because we may have documentation with the strategies that they assume they can be implemented, but in the common language, in the common setting of our country, it's not implemented. Okay. Now, I'm talking of something in the local concept of the country we have, Uganda. As a villager, what I know very well that can be implemented, because we've seen many things. You see NADS. NADS was following up on each and every farmer. They were following up, and even to the extent that they assessed your soil. They even brought those laboratory technicians to come and take a sample of your soil, to go and take it, then assess it and tell you, okay, this is the kind of plantation you have to have here. Why can that also happen to other cash crops? Because can they use that strategy? Because remember, have you ever seen NADS in your area?
Definitely.
Yeah, they had regulations. You have to be in a fenced area. You have to put a signpost somewhere that this is an NADS project. It's doing ABCD. You don't do this. Don't spray. Okay, it was beautiful, and the implementation was wow. NADS is still there. Can they also add on the objectives of NAD to do also that work with the same strategy they did on their GMOs and other activities they were doing? That follow-up strategy can work. Through NADS, they can do that.
Okay.
Right. I think...
No, Edge, maybe as you're going to come in...
Finally, the nickname is out.
Isaac.
I thought you had agreed.
Allow me. Isaac,
Yes.
as you come in, commercial agriculture, but also industrialization, moves hand in hand with human capital development. And human capital development is going through education. And at the moment, our country is at crossroads, whether to prioritize education or prioritize military might. Of which, in your submissions, I would like you to help us guide the debate in looking at the education sector, in line in how we're training the citizens to better serve this country. Makere recently released over 12,000 graduates who very hopeful for what the future is yet to offer for them. But the reality is we are uncertain of what the future beholds them. because the unemployment rates are high, quite high, and there is so much yet they have at their hearts in terms of hope, and then the reality is the jobs are not there. So as you make your submissions, look at human capital development and how that can help take our country or boost the economy. Has the government really done enough in that?
Mr. Moderator, again, you have asked like 4 questions in one.
Definitely. So I wanted to capture all that as you respond to me.
I will start with Mr. Abdul's submission, and I will just add something small.
Yeah.
What I want to add is that we live in a country where we do not know who we are. That's the first thing. One, when we started this national identification registration, that body that registers every Ugandan, you cannot imagine how many people are not registered. And
are in existence by that
yes,
time.
and the loopholes that are there. You see, I love my government so much, but at the same time, I will call a spade where it is what a spade. So before we even go to the creation of these circles, we do not have a societal organization model that when you go to cover the district local government can assess and tell you that this is the number of people we are dealing with, this is what they do, this is what so and so can produce. Before we even get to that, we should not even dream about commercialization of agriculture. If we are going to talk about industrialization, there is iron ore. Iron ore has been left to Chinese. The government feels like they cannot invest in such a project. But what is South Sudan doing in terms of their oil? We have UNOC, which is a similar body, but when you look at how both countries approach that question of production of oil, it's quite different. And then you ask, is Uganda an African country? You might think that maybe we are from Mars. I do not want to delve into the loopholes of this system. What I want to say is that, just to add on your point, without a clear setup of our population, we cannot account for the citizens. And if we can't account for the citizens, then what budget framework who are we drawing it up for? We have figures that are actually to paint a picture of what Uganda is actually like. We do not have figures that explain and justify the current state of Uganda. Quite a tragedy here. Mr. Moderator, you asked me to weigh the variation, human capital development, military might, and then education. It is very sad. When you ask me this question, you are equally asking a pregnant woman to really not to go for antenatal care. Why? Because what is the history of this country? You see, the bare minimum qualification for our army is, what is our bare minimum qualification?
Senior 6.
Senior 4?
Senior 4, senior 6. But I am also reliably informed that our DRP7 candidates can actually qualify. And that is if even P7 is not there. I am trying to avoid the other word that starts with the letter C-O-R-R-U-P-T-I-O-N. As long as we still have that vice, that means that the systems that would be putting us right, the systems that would be the so-called tours of this vice, they are not there. So when you ask me to weigh human capital, human development, I would prefer to call it capital culture. I think I shared this with one of the people that I'm mentoring at UCU. And I was sharing about capital culture. That where you're born, or your society, the environment, it will dictate at least a bigger percentage to the type of human being that you become. Bare minimum level at university level in Uganda here, there are 2 words that you'll find that are common. One is mugati.
Bread.
Bread is mugati. And if we are discussing mugati, we are basically laughing about why our country is rotten. We are basically sharing, broadly speaking, why we are actually experiencing stagnated growth. You get? when you ask me to assess the graduates that have just left campus, I mean, we are in a system that is not a job creator. My people, my fellow panelists, maybe will enlighten us on industrialization and the what of you, which I don't think that Uganda is an industrialized country. But maybe they might need to extrapolate the purpose of the existence of gender and what of you. But what are we talking about here? We have an education that is more theoretical than one that fosters developmental skills. You get?
Could then that be a challenge as to why we are failing in other sectors, such as industrialization, because we import a lot of labor from outside in terms of skilled labor to help man, let's say, the engineering projects on road construction.
Do you know what is even funny?
Yeah.
What is funny is that the people that we import are even not bachelor degree holders. These people have done certificates in these things just to qualify them to be on the paper of government. Yet we have people here that have all that theory, but they cannot even make a safety pin. Does Uganda make safety pins? I have not heard of that.
I've mentioned someone who the government sponsored and now is on Twitter just being an influence of the government. Very old man is a professor.
What I'm trying to say is we have not yet made that big, bold, fearless move of moving away from theory to practical. I think the practicality was left to only nursing and doctor students.
Actually, too.
Because now...
And the lawyers.
To cut you short, people, like we have seen whereby the government has changed the curriculum for the all-level students, right? Whereby they have brought in some other activities that will be more for the outdoor activities compared to the
But is
indoor.
that practical enough? Because what we're looking at practicality, let's just compare it with other countries' curriculum. For example, okay, I'm not supposed to rely on very excellent or developed countries like the UK or China, because what they do is you pick a particular skill from the onset of your childhood, and you're trained in that aspect. You want to be an engineer, they train in that aspect. And in this day and age whereby IT is where to go, everyone, you find a Chinese kid who knows how to code at the age of 10.
Sure.
And we are here still learning about the Maji revenge. Which is okay, by the way.
It's about that I still don't understand why we studied the Canadian police. But just, I do not want to go into how bad
When
and
the
dire.
Canadians don't even start about
I don't want to go into the nitty-gritties of how dire the situation is.
Yeah, but just as a wind up and bring out the...
What I want to focus on is we are faced with a society that is the people that we have put forward to give us a direction have actually blocked. Deliberately, they have blocked all avenues of this kind of development that we want. And I want to caution that the development that we want is not to be found in politics. The development that we want is to be found in legislation. Now, with the legislators, it will come back again to the question that you posed before this panel, which is the question of implementation. That in whatever that we want to do as a country, do we even have a unified voice, an equivocal voice, that if we decide that we are going to take this direction, it is going to be implemented to the dot. We have an audit system that only audits when we are going to give a budget framework. We have not seen an audit system publicly that will tell me that Kabale district was allocated this money in such a financial budget, this was used for ABC, this did ABC. This happens indoors. And what the politics and the games played within those walls, you cannot imagine. There is no reason as to why Uganda should not be developed. What are we lacking? You can tell me. What don't we have? There is no reason that you can give to an entire world and tell them that in Uganda we still have poor people, that we still have people that cannot afford a meal a day.
We lack implementable policies.
Anyway, it's very unfortunate that we have these discussions time and again. The stakeholders, the legislators, our so-called leaders, who are not leaders but rather politicians, pay deaf ear to the plight of the young people who still have 40, 50 years to live. Unlike for them, who they are in the evenings of their days, mainly, unfortunately, maybe have only 30 or 20 years. And yet the aspect of sustainability is something that we all need to take cognizant and pay keen attention to. Nonetheless, let's just have your patience. Speaking of health and the aspect of sustainability, Uganda is 62 years? 62 years old.
More than that.
Just in terms of independence.
Yeah.
And just a few days ago, the current government celebrated 38 years of liberating this country, as they term it.
Half of the age.
Yeah, that's actually half my age. But
Yeah, surely.
I have seen one government ever since I was born, but that's not the case. So patience. I'd like us to look at health. This government has been in power 38 years down the road. And at the moment, we are looking at the budget framework of 2024-2025, but obviously need to assess the one of 2023-2024. And in the previous budget, health was among somewhat not fairly funded sectors, though not as funded as the heavy machinery, which is the military. Which are told, in my opinion, I think health should be, health and education take the center stage in the economy of a country. But I'd like you to speak to that effect, because in northern Uganda, where you come from, persons, children, are dying of the nodding syndrome, which the government seem not to pay attention about that, and we have people dying every day. Reports have it that over 14 million Ugandans have mental health issues. And yet, at the moment, if you go to the mental health institute here in Butabika, it is full to capacity. The other mental health services are quite expensive, of which majority of Ugandans cannot afford. Speak to the status of health in relation to our budget. Is it a priority to our government, really?
Well, thank you, Mr. Drake. Well, the health sector has been a very challenging sector in this economy, because you see, with the issue of the nodding syndrome in northern Uganda, the government has really tried to reach out. The government has really tried to provide the necessary services, of which it's not adequate enough, like, to be used there, in such a sense that you find when most of the budget that is allocated to health, it's not directed towards such
initiatives.
Yeah, initiatives. But whereby, because I remember the Ministry of Health requested for a lot of money to be implemented in the construction of hospitals, like the Lobau Hospital, which, according to me, I suggest that maybe such amount of money can be directed to such issues, whereby it can be implemented in the health of the people of northern Uganda, in such a sense that, since the youth and the children are the future of tomorrow, we should focus at helping the young people. We should focus at treating any disease or maybe any syndrome that might sprout out of a certain region of the country. The government should focus on maybe implementing more money and maybe initiatives to go and work hand in hand with those people in up country. We cannot only look at, like, sectors like construction of hospitals, yet people are dying.
But isn't construction of hospitals a facility that would aid to reduce the mortality rate?
Yeah, it would help. it would help in such a sense that, you see, currently Uganda has a lot of, like, they have many hospitals, like that. There's so many, of which that construction takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
They allocate a lot of money, but that money is not put into use.
Okay, so your argument that you're trying to front is that the money that is allocated for the specificity of the construction of hospitals are oftentimes corrupted or swindled,
Yes.
right? So the argument is we need to channel that money directly to the affected persons, if I'm to get that right. But then how feasible is that? If at all we are to channel, okay, how will that even happen? Let's say we are to give money to persons suffering from nodding syndrome. Where will the money go? How will they get it? I think maybe a more viable option could be we look at very effective privately owned hospitals that are doing well in giving support to people in terms of providing health facilities. For example, in northern Uganda, we have St. Mary's Hospital at Shore, which offers, it's owned by the Catholic Church, which offers people very cheap health services and to some extent free. Could the government maybe look at facilitating such hospitals in providing them, I think that is your argument, in providing them with resources that would help benefit the greater majority of the citizens?
Yeah, the government can fund those private hospitals to maybe give it a hand to access maybe the people who are affected in those areas, because you might find if you have to go deep down there in the villages and you find the health centers, they really don't have those facilities that are supposed to be extended to the affected people. You find that they might have the facilities and the services, but they're substandard. They're not to the limit whereby it can be extended to the affected people.
All right. Abdul, as we wind up the first half of the conversation, I'd like you to speak like a layman. In a submission, you call yourself a village boy, which I do associate myself with as well. I call myself, I'm a local boy from Guli no Moaro. The local man out there will not understand your economics, will not relate to your numbers.
To the kind of language.
If the Honorable Minister says the inflation rate has decreased by 0.0 something percent, it will not matter to them. What matters to them, do I have food on the table? Is soap affordable? Can I have sugar to take with my tea? Are my children getting education? Those are the debates that the local person would want to associate with. So as we wrap up this half of the conversation, speak to them and put yourself in their shoes and make arguments in support to what they feel and what you think the government should do to help them out.
Personally, I think the government is doing what the government must do. But the masses are not doing what the masses must do. Because we have a tendency that we are put in a situation whereby you can be silenced, not talk about what hinders your development as a mass, as an individual. Then you start looking at the situation whereby what is hindering our development as a country. When you look yourself as a country, then that means that you have a long way to your development, because you'll associate yourself with the whole country. That, okay, let me sit here for others are not moving. Let me not also move. I'll wait for those in Karamoja to move, then I will do move. So you associate with the general public and you fail to understand that I am me, and they also made a step ahead to move from where they are. I have colleagues I work with, they are from Karamojong, they are from Karamoja. And in a situation whereby I've been analyzing this issue of Mabati. Those Karamoja people are now happy that they have received Mabati. They are going to stay under the Mabati houses and without food. They are going to stay there hungry, and they will die hunger into those iron sheets. Then they will leave and they use those iron sheets to bury them. They will just remove the iron sheets. They will just put them in their graveyards. Then that's done. So how best can the masses also pressurize the government also to feel their need for them to be uplifted from one step to the other? Now that's the kind of a conversation I need to have here, because we are in a situation whereby when you complain, you are being manipulated that this is not your role. wait for the government to think for you. Wait for the government to act on your behalf. And we fail to implement our own strategies in terms of development. We have, I've seen the president in his last speech. He said that the government has created more jobs by supporting industries and what. Why doesn't this happen in Karamoja? Because you see, Karamoja, they are using these energetic men and women to go and work in gold mines, of which more money is getting out from those gold mines, but they are paying less, more than even what they get, because those who make sure that this gold is out of the soil, this gold is out of the mines, are getting little. Then they feed those ones who sit home waiting for this gold to get what? To get done. Now, let's talk to the minimum wage. We are the youth here.
Maybe just, let me just hold you there. We shall get back to that quickly after the short break.
Okay.
Otherwise, we've been having a very interesting conversation. We've been discussing the status of the economy, looking at the budget framework of the financial year 2024-2025. The young people have done justice to the conversation, and we just go for a short break and we'll be right back. See you shortly. Bye-bye.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that break. Just right before we went into the break, my brother Abdul was making a point on minimum wage. I don't know how the minimum wage is a debate that is quite hot and heated. And someone could argue that we are actually not yet ready for that.
We are ready. We are more than ready.
Take it away.
Because, as he has said, Makere has just graduated more than how many?
12,000.
12,000. Few of them are in position to earn more than 500.
Mr. Abdul, that is too high. Let's start at 200.
200.
Yeah.
Well, few of them are in position. Few of them are in position to earn 200,000 shillings a month.
Yes.
How convert that in dollars?
It's approximately 60 or 50 something.
Actually 57. There.
Imagine 50. You are not in position to earn $50 per month.
Yeah.
And then we are here discussing the nitty-gritties, the language, the beautification of the words in the framework. And then our legislators are there seated, looking at these graduates like, oh, they've graduated, Makele's doing a great job. But they are not doing justice to them. They have to be able to be in position to serve also these masses, because they are their voters. Remember, we are the majority, but we try and fight to make ends meet. Failure us to struggle, even when you get a job. Do you know that you can get a job and struggle to be paid? You work, but you are not paid. You are just being told, we are assessing you. We are just trying to see how capable are you to do this job.
You're on probation.
You are on probation, and you are earning. You are earning. You are trying to earn trust, but you are not earning financially. So that kind of the hullabaloos and confusion when it comes to employment of the youth. So now you told me to discuss this as a layman. As a layman, how I understand it. Do you know that we still have these girls who, do you know that the government is discouraging, and many people are discouraging these young ladies to go abroad for work. But a maid here in Uganda earns 50,000 a month. Do you know that? 50,000
Where?
a month in Uganda.
It's
Because-
oftentimes some of them get, others even get less.
Others even get less.
I thought 50,000 is actually okay. The last time I checked, it was between 20 and 35.
They get 50,000 a month. Okay.
Others work for food
Okay,
and survive.
maximally 70. Then how can you discourage that girl not to go to Saudi Arabia to get 1.2 million? And they know however much they are dying, however much they are suffering. She knows that I'll
It's
suffer.
a risk worth it.
I will suffer in a full month. I have my 1.2, which I cannot even make in 5 to 6 months in Uganda. And we are comfortable seated in our seats and thinking that we are thinking for the country.
All right. Let me just bring in Age on that point of labor exploitation and labor export. You'd handle that as one question. The other question,
You never ask him for. He's good in that.
so you focus on labor export and labor exploitation. But then the other thing is, I just want us still to speak now like ordinary people and put ourselves in the shoes of that lady who is selling fruits down there in Kalewe, down there in Nakasero, in Owino. Their plight is the cost of exporting their fruits to the market is expensive. Fuel at the moment, a litre approximately is at 5,500 Ugandan shillings. And that alone affects or increases the costs of production even when to bring their products to the market, which in turn cuts on the profit that they get, but also increases on their cost and standard of living, which to that lay person they feel that is affecting them. The Honorable Minister will, in their reports, in very nice codified English, will say, maybe in a period of 3 months towards the end of the year, the inflation rate has reduced by 0.01%. That is language that the ordinary person does not understand. Speak to that, Age, on those questions.
Mr. Moderator, again, I think there are 3 questions. One is in regards to the inflation bit of it. The second is in regards to labor exploitation.
And labor export.
Yes, and the third one is the understanding of the wananchi when it comes to what is actually inflation. You'll agree with me that a bowl of soap now, which is almost at 10,000, we were used to buy it at 3,000, 2,000. And in what span of time is that? Yeah, inflation is like you have said. I do not know who wrote clearly that budget and why they chose to use those figures. That our inflation has somehow reduced by 0.01%, and that our shilling is relatively stable against the dollar. When you read that well curated, it is a well curated but discontextualized kind of framework that suits within those that want to foster their policies and those who at least know that by writing such good English, that at least maybe they benefit. I want to assure you that I totally disassociate myself with such well curated budgeted figures.
Before I cut you short, you know that that good and complicated English is being used at local level to confuse councillors when it comes to passing the budget.
Because now you don't expect someone who ended at senior 4 and is working with the local government, to understand what 0.01% reduction. In fact, actually, they use Y of Y percentage and whatever. It's a whole lot of it's a document that you must have at least attained some level of good economics to
comprehend.
And you ask yourself why.
I would have been comfortable if they presented that framework in
Why?
the form of a graph. Yeah.
Just come and tell me that Kabale district, we allocated you 50 million Ugandan shillings.
We want to do this.
We want to do this, we want to improve on this, we want to do this. And then come again, maybe quarterly, and tell me this is the man person in charge. Then take us and let's visit the locus. Sure. Let's visit the locus, show us the road that you constructed, and let us evaluate that. That is what Kagame is doing in Rwanda. It's public audit, open. You will find that you misuse the funds, your entire family and lineage pays for it. Because this is taxpayers' money. You saw what currently happened at Kurok Tower there. That money has been paid by Ugandans, but there are, again, the same facilities that government has put because government apparently cannot manage to organize the community. People are still dying of accidents. It's very stupid accidents. In Uganda, we live in a country where if a policeman knocks you, you pay damages. A policeman knocking you, you pay damages. So when we talk about inflation today, before I came for this show, I managed to secure myself a Rolex. But a Rolex of 3,000 is, it is very sad, Mr. Moderator.
From the point of a campus student, you understand.
In a layman's language, those are two chapatis, 2 eggs.
But where are we headed to, sincerely? 5,000, you cannot secure a meal in Uganda now.
And you are still hungry.
And I'm yawning from the time we started this show. Well, when we are addressing the question of labor exploitation, to be honest, 80% of the youths in Uganda are looking for a way.
How they
Legal, non-legal, formal, non-formal, how to get out of this country. And actually, to put it plainly, we are not any different. Even the people in this room, we are not any different. But I will address two major questions. One, is it justifiable enough for the state to stand and say that we have labor laws? Is it justifiable enough for us to come and sit here and discuss labor exploitation? There is labor exploitation, which is different from labor export. What are we exporting? The people that are actually going, and why actually they are even manipulated, one, they do not understand what they are in for. They cannot create an aggregate of the laws of UAE.
None of them sign their contract.
There's nothing like that. Because they are desperate to live. You look at Uganda as a blessed curse. When these people tell you about the Uganda, actually even those people, the so-called kadamas, I'm not attacking anyone here, but they will tell you that a bachelor's in Uganda is useless, and they're right to say so. Because if we are saying that a graduate is not earning more than 250,000, which is even not good enough for rent, when you look at our housing kind of infrastructure that has come up, where are you? Who is going to house you in the house for 250? It's Chikoni. Now, when you mention Chikoni, I am sure that our friends at Mook best understand that language. But, well, what we are trying to say is we can do better. And I will not agree with both panelists that the state has done what it has done. I don't think that this country should really be at that level. When you look at the organizational structure and the organizational structure of Singapore, totally different. 1962, we are at the same level. In fact, statistics say that we're actually doing far better. The question is, the same people, same society, same resources, who died? Only one person changed. Did the passing of Obote and Amin lead to the greater downfall of this country? I do not want to buy that idea.
Cutting you short, that's aside. If you can easily recall the Lee Kuan Yew philosophy and the way he acted, firstly, on how to develop Singapore, he said that we don't have resources. We don't have anything related to our development, but now let's focus on human resource development. In Uganda, since 1962, we haven't done that yet. Human resource development, not at all.
No, but you see, the government would argue that in the year 2012, the illiteracy rate has declined, and over 70.6%.
With this kind of, Mr. Moderator, let me cut you short. With this kind of curriculum and the kind of education we have, which course did you take?
I am doing law.
You are doing law. You are still doing law.
Yes.
What can you do with your law?
Of course, the number of things a lawyer does. But that is not the conversation.
In terms of development.
The conversation is, I think, what maybe we should then digest is the state that we are in at the moment in terms of human capital development, the argument that is trying to foster. what quality of citizenry are we producing? You raise what Lee Kuan Yew did in Singapore.
Yeah.
They focused on human capital development, and that 20 years down the road, Singapore is a first world country. Where are we as Uganda? We have had over 8 presidents, but then the question is, have we made significant progress? Days down the road, Uganda's the NRA government celebrated 38 years in power. What significant success can they actually attribute?
Someone said that doctors from Uganda are being exported more than we export cash crops.
Possible, and that's true.
Because they go outside and they offer that service. The government of Uganda educates them. After them graduating, they leave the country. They go and serve other governments.
Because they're treasured. The issue here is, I think what Age maybe is going to conclude on, the issue at the moment as a country is we do not treasure our human resource. Look at teachers. How much are teachers paid in this current government? Are they treasured? They're paid peanuts. Are they motivated? No. They're leaving government schools for private schools, whereby even private schools, at least they're paying them somewhat better money. So the question that I think also needs to be answered is the government prioritizing education? Is the government prioritizing those individuals that offer education? Teachers are very fundamental, and those are among the professions that must be taken care of in a country. But do we do that as a country? I think no. But Age, as you
Mr. Moderator, it is painful indeed when we talk about human resource development. I do not know if our legislators are actually literate.
Do not take us to the quality of our...
the whole August House, just leave it.
No, we shouldn't generalize it.
Because you hinted about the literacy, the 2012 report. I want to bring it to your attention, Mr. Moderator, that literacy is not defined by the amount of qualifications that one has attained. It is what you are actually capable of doing with that qualification.
And you can implement in line.
Because if me, I have my area member of NP, Mr. Nicholas Kamala, but I just last voted him into power. I have not seen anything significant since 2021. But you see, this is someone that sits with the LC5 chairperson to plan for the entire municipality. You get? And if we visit the municipality today, you will cry to tears, Mr. Moderator. What I'm trying to say is, if we are going to discuss the question of one literacy, I think it's an entire different topic.
Yeah, it is.
That you might see me shedding tears on air, which is, The second point is about what you just hinted about, that if we are going to go to human resource, treasuring our doctors, our teachers, our engineers, who constructed our most expensive road? we have an education system that produces people who we do not trust, but these are our own products. We have Chinese toddlers who have certificates but can actually mix concrete. They're the ones that we are paying these huge money.
And they are monitoring those with degrees.
You understand? You get? That is the country in which we are today. And when Lumumba says that we have actually failed to redefine the concept under which we want, one, our political direction to head, and two, economic direction to head, I think I do not entirely disagree with him on two major reasons. One, I still stand and say Uganda is one of the most potential states. Most potential. But the question is, why aren't things happening? We have one, they roll out a project of a concession of the road. It is in the news. It is as if it is something new. It is as if it is a development. It's as if we had a Spear Motors. Is it not Spear? Chira Motors.
It's still there.
Well, I've not seen anything. We had electric. We had the electric buses, but what has changed? What was the original concept of making those buses?
To go ahead and change and
and when you go to Old Kampala Tax Park, what is there?
just to go this side of Clock Tower, what is there?
Few weeks ago, I was part of the team.
Anyway, guys, no, it's all right.
Okay, let me facilitate this out.
let's
Few weeks ago, I was part of the team that suggested, if possible, that we can have a NAM-like event in Uganda every after 3 months, so that we can feel the beauty of our country and the organization we had in the last 3 weeks of NAM.
Sincerely, we have failed to organize our country. Totally failed.
People usually say, I need to forget
I do not want to edit.
But it's all right. Let's just bring it.
Don't tempt us to answer that. You cause us problems.
Let's just bring in the lady. See, it's quite absurd that as a young generation, we contemplate on these issues. We do not sit on the decision-making body, which the cabinet, the average age there is 65 years. And these are our elders are making decisions for us, and the decisions are not actually being.
The young people have seen there, are they doing anything?
Definitely not. But also as young people, we also need to be very cautious on what we do. Young people are being given platforms, but they also misuse it.
They misuse.
So we need to also, first of all, sit back on the drawing board. If at all we are to take up these positions, we need to do the work. We don't just need to politic like what our elders have done. We need to be the change we want to be. But it's all right. Let's just bring in the lady quickly as we try to wrap up the conversation. Patience. As Age was speaking about human capital development, in my mind, I was thinking that we have over 12,000 graduates that have come out from Makere. UCU brought theirs last year towards the end of the year, and other institutions as well. Very optimistic young people, very energetic. And that population, we are blessed to have a very huge population of young people. The Western worlds are crying for young people. Yet we have them and we're not utilizing them. Our country's economy is in a state, though the minister says it's on but in actual sense, we are on a decline. And we need to be honest and blunt about it. Just in your own words, what do you have to make of the issue relating to human capital development, the status entirely, as we try to wrap up the conversation?
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Well, the issue with human capital is that what the government can do is the government can boost the human capital in such a fact that my fellow panelists, they are focusing on the government employing and increasing maybe the
Employment
wages, which is not bad, that is good, but also like we should look at job creation. The government can boost this 12,000 graduates that have been graduated recently, and maybe other graduates from different universities and institutions. We cannot only look at employment because the employment opportunities, they're not enough for everyone. In like you see, in this country, the youth, like we cover up a very large percentage, and the jobs available, they're not enough for everyone. So each and every graduate is supposed to look at job creation opportunities in such a way that's why the government is trying to boost like youth which with small job mindset, those ones who can maybe invent and maybe bring about different kind of job creation in the country. So like we should make the country look at job creation instead of employment, because at the end of the day, if someone is to create their own opportunities, they can employ different people, like other graduates, to also come and work.
Do you know that in Uganda we start businesses every day, and the rate at which we start business is the same rate at which they fall, and those are the same people that graduate and start up that we can call small scale companies or small scale businesses, SMSs, and at the rate at which they are being started, it's the same rate. Those companies usually decline at a faster rate.
Actually, you see, growth is a gradual process. That's why you see, you have to keep on trying. However much you fail, you might fall today, but you have to keep on trying.
We cannot run away from being employed.
True.
We are not yet ready to
I think,
to create.
Mr. Abdul, I think two things. One, I will focus on incubation, which definitely, of course, the incubation sectors in Uganda that are trying to help the youth have also actually crippled them.
Yeah.
So we need to check on that. But also on the point that she's trying to make, innovation, I think I will just summarize it into the whole word of innovation. Sadly, our youth actually are innovative. The sad bit of it comes in when their innovations are actually taken up by other people. They pay them peanuts and they sell these ideas elsewhere, which ideas would have actually benefited the state in the long run. So we do not have centers or ready avenues whereby if maybe I came up with something that I feel is very important to so I have a friend who came up with a system where all farmers can be monitored. All farmers can be monitored. You can log into the system and tell us about what you're growing, where you are, and then the system can help you at least connecting the buyer and the seller in the easiest, without actually you having to bring your things to Nakasero. You get such an idea. Very brilliant, very good for the agricultural ministry. But the question is, where did it end?
I think now that will take us to digital transformation. An area that I think maybe you can wrap up on that as well.
Yeah.
Data at the moment is quite expensive. Aside from data being expensive, the rates at which the government is encouraging people to use more of e-transactions instead of cash. But then if you have to check the rates at which you're charged for just sending 20,000, 10,000, it is discouraging to a person who is doing business. Because if, let's say, in a day you make, let's say, 10 transactions of 10,000, you are going to make the costs of approximately 20,000 as regards to that. Now, that alone discourages what? Discourages business. But speak to the issue of digital digital transformation. Data is very expensive. You're discouraging e-facilities. Facebook is closed down for a couple of years. You at a point in time introduced OTT tax and then later removed it. You make 5 steps forward, 10 steps backward. What is our government looking at?
As I said before, I'm sorry to say this on air. The decision makers are IT illiterates. And when it comes to digital, yeah, they are, because the generations, we have the intergenerational challenge. The generations are not coordinating well. The current generation, for me, I can spend 5 hours on internet, of which my father can't. And I can spend the whole night doing my research on internet, of which my father will feel comfortable reading old newspapers from New Vision and what, just to see what is happening in the country. But for me, I'll spend much of my time to see what is happening in China, to see what is happening in Singapore, and which kind of transformation they do have. We have good developers in the country, but you develop a system, you are selling this system to someone who is totally ignorant about the system, and they feel comfortable doing things old way, and they think that's the better way to handle the issues. Now, if you have talked about the e-transactions, let me give you a clear example of which any one of us is related to it. Let's look at MomoPay. I'm sorry to make for them an advert, but it's not worth it. MomoPay, you pay. I'm purchasing something at 5,000. I use MomoPay to send that 5,000 without charge on my side, but you are not considering the receiver. He or she must withdraw that amount of money. Yeah. They are going to charge. Okay? You've given out that money without charges. The receiver is going to withdraw that money with a charge. And you said that you've gave us an opportunity for making each transaction on a free cost, but you haven't minded about the receiver. some things are not even, they never designed them in a way that it's in good faith. The faith in which these systems are being designed, sometimes it's a bit worrying. Look at URA. We do normally do transactions with URA, but have you ever witnessed that when it's time to file your returns, when everyone is filing at the end of the financial year, the system is always down? Have you witnessed that? Yes. The system was always down. What's the essence of the system being down?
And they actually give you time. They try to extend to justify their system.
They try to extend to justify their system so that you can meet the deadline. And after meeting the deadline, you have to pay the what? The fine. Do you know that we don't have people who can no longer access internet cafes to make their transactions? People are ignorant. You are telling someone to log into his or her URA account in an internet cafe whereby someone can use his or her own company to purchase other things so that tax can go on you. And people usually do that. There is no kind of, they don't sensitize the masses. Like, we have people who are into these sectors, but they are not sensitized well enough on how to implement them and how to use them to be securely with them. Personally, I opted to go back for a master's in cybersecurity. Reason, I thought we have done much in utilizing internet. And the reason why you see banks always complain that they are being, the account has been hacked and what, because there are people who do what we call ethical hacking in an unethical way. They do ethical hacking in an unethical way, and they end up making losses for people. And those people in the banks, they can easily see something. We still have even our phones. We still have people who can send a document, a virus, and someone doesn't know that this is how the virus looks like. You just click in it. You have your mobile money apps on your phone. You have all your bank apps on your phone. Then someone just send you a virus. Out of a blue, you lose everything. You don't have even access to your money. So the innovation is there, but the mindset that is using that innovation is outdated. How can we do the update of the current human capital? The human people, the human now capital we have is outdated. They are not up to date to the current trends in the world. Yeah? Other countries are developing nuclears. What are we developing as a country, Uganda? Even our satellite is now down. Do you know that? We developed a satellite in less than a year. It's down. And no one can even justify that. Can you imagine? We can't even have a center or an IT hub that can easily stand on its own. We can't. We have many innovators here in the country. They opt to go outside the country because they may get space to implement their knowledge, to implement their objectives, to implement their projects instead of implementing them in the country. Because here they know when you implement something and it's hindering someone's job, immediately will be scrapped off. All right. You won't be given a chance to even defend your project. They say that you are being a threat.
So maybe as we wind up, you can give your recommendations in 60 seconds, then we can move like that.
Okay. As I said, I will reply my sister in few seconds. We can't run away from being employed, because the fact that we have to be employed to gain knowledge and the capacity to see how we can employ others. Employment is a way forward for sustainability, because even your business must have ups and downs. You can't start up a business and you think that you can sustain it from January to December. You need to have a backup, and that backup must be an employment. So as you start, this is to my fellow youth, as you start your own initiatives, don't run away from being employed. Get employed, start your own initiatives in the space you have, in the free time you have. But the employment you have must back up your initiatives so that we can see sustainability. The problem why these companies started up by the fellow youth are declining each and every day, it's because they lack sustainability plans and they lack sustainability routes. get employed, get a sustainable program, then start your own. That can be sustained by your employment opportunity you have outside it. I think that will be a great opportunity for us all to move forward as a country.
All right, thank you very much. Patience, your recommendations in 60 seconds.
My recommendation is that, as my panelist has commented, is that employment is good, but you see in this Uganda education sector, it's usually said that for a degree to yield, you have to first wait for like 20 to 30 years for it to give back to you. Yeah, everyone wants to be employed, of course, after graduation, but the country we are living in doesn't give us that opportunity. That's why you find graduates going downtown in Chikubu to look for other job opportunities. Not that they don't have the papers or the opportunities for those employment available, but because the system has been corrupted, of which a few people with connections are the ones who get that employment you're talking about, and people from the rural areas deep down in the villages, not everyone has those opportunities of being employed. That's why at a certain point you should make something small for yourself as you wait for the employment to catch up with you.
All right, thank you. Age, as you make your recommendations.
The nickname is out now. The whole world knows your nickname, so you need to justify why you are called the Age.
Surely you are asking me to give recommendations. I don't know specifically on if it is the budget framework, it is on labor exploitation, it is education.
Just focus on the budget framework, but on which areas you think we should focus more?
I think since I am a son of a peasant, I will focus on the agricultural bit of it. I think we can do better as a country, and I will not so much depart from what my fellow panelists have said. That in as much as we want to have our individual SMS or our small-scale startups, I, for one, I have tried out a number of them, and I can say 90% they have not been successful, but because of one reason or two. Usually we rush too fast. We rush too fast. You're a fresh graduate, you want to make things happen, which is very, very good vigor, very good ambition, but we do not have that mentorship that actually the industry and the country that we are dealing with requires you to, first of all, know the market, do the research, move around, first work under someone to understand the niche, first understand the business that you're venturing into. You want to open up a restaurant, but you've never worked as a waiter, you even do not know how to hold a knife. It's quite fatal because all that you're going to pay for it in the long run. Yet these are the costs that you will have cut if you actually knew how to do a few things. Yeah. So the startups are good. Employment, we cannot definitely entirely run away from it. It's the cradle of building. You know, you want to build yourself. It is the most immediate go-to place. You know, but like she said, we cannot rule out the fact that we need to equip ourselves at. One of my friends was sharing with me that the person who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad has actually filed for bankruptcy. and it is a sad phenomenon. Because once you read Rich Dad Poor Dad, you might think that this is the crowd of financial literacy and breakthrough. Yet the same person that has written that book.
But he said something about good and bad debt. So you may find that he's talking about the philosophy of a good debt.
I do not so much disagree with Kiyosaki's views, but I would still say that we need to focus on, let's not rush as youths. Even if it is an innovation, let it mature and roll it out when it is due. Yeah, let's understand how to handle finances. Financial literacy and discipline are one of the very, very little tenets that any school, business school, law school, school of medicine, engineering, social sciences can teach us. Yeah, but if we can get these things, if you people prefer to call it learning on the job, if we can get these things and start now, we can get there. The digital transformation, it is the worst that I can talk of, but the good news is it it can be done better. And it can be done better if the state realizes the goal. What is the vision? You're sharing with me about the theme. But what is the vision of our, as we head into 2026, which is also another kind of heated, maybe we shall talk about that later. But bottom line, to our dear viewers and listeners, thank you so much. I remain Arinda Isaac, Rugambwa from Uganda Christian University. And as the moderator prefers to call me, Prince Edge, it is a name by which I write most of my work, which are not yet out in the domain, but maybe with time.
Looking forward to that.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Edge, Patience, and Abdul, for taking time and giving us this very wonderful and engaging conversation that we have had today. Personally, I've enjoyed the conversation. You have done most of the talking and done justice to the topic. Today, we're discussing the status of the economy, the budget framework of 2024-2025, and I've been joined by a very distinguished lady and gentlemen, as I earlier on noted, and they've done very good in trying to discuss the topic today. Otherwise, my name is Douglas Drake. I've been your host today. See you next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.